everybody. Welcome back to Soul Speak for part 2 of What Did We Learn and Unlearn in 2020?
I've been talking about this for like the whole podcast, every single episode we have ever recorded, because this has been my lesson all year, was learning how to set boundaries first and foremost, because I had none. Hooray! I had no boundaries, right? And I gave so much of myself. And I still struggle here and there. You know, it's not to say that I've totally mastered setting boundaries with other people, but this is the year where I learned to say no. This is the year where I learned to step back and to really assess the relationships that I had. And this was the year where where I understood that I had to be more mindful of who I spent my time with or who I chased after. And it's about quality of people, not quantity of people you have in your life. And when we focus on the quality of people, that desire of quantity is lost. That desperation is gone. That's what I was struggling with. If you haven't listened to the rest of our podcast thus far, the interesting thing is like I'm an expat. I live expatriate. I live in the Middle East, and the one thing about having a lifestyle like this is you're not in your hometown. You're not with your family, and everybody who is living the same lifestyle as you are, you know, they're far away from home. But it's such a lonely lifestyle when you are alone. And sometimes it's not just about being alone. It's sometimes you have family with you, but building relationships, new relationships, is very difficult being an expatriate, right? And for those of you who are listening, you know, some of you, maybe you grew up in military bases in different countries. You would understand what that is. Or just growing up in different countries because your parents worked everywhere else, or they traveled, or you had to travel for school or something. But depending on what country you move to, it can get very, very lonely in building relationships. And I struggled with that for a really, really long time in wanting to build a connection, but not finding it. And then this feeling of desperation growing, because it's like you're trying to make things happen on your own. You're trying to force things to happen because of how you feel. And quality is lost in that process because you're giving everything. You're putting yourself out there so much that people are like, look at this chump. I'll take. And I don't need to do anything in the process, right? And this year was really a lesson of me understanding that, yes, not everybody is going to like it when you say no. Not everybody's going to like it when you say enough, right? Because they are they're expecting that from you because they're used to that kind of behavior, right? So being okay with that was the most difficult thing for me to comprehend this year, because I was such a yes person of, okay, I'll do that. I will go above and beyond for people, and not expecting anything in return, but still feeling violated after all of that because I know that I was being treated badly, but because so-and-so was my friend or so-and-so was someone I cared about, you basically take it, you tolerate it, right? So what happened this year? I started to say no, and I became the bad guy. I started to say no, and slowly but surely, every single person in the relationship that I had in my life started to rearrange themselves to the rightful positions, right?
I like that.
So you really get to see who's who, what's what, what's these relationships built upon, what are the values, were they even real relationships, were they really needed or necessary? Can I live without this person? Yes, of course we all can, right? But in those moments we feel like we need to save these relationships, and the crazy thing is we're the only people doing the work to save these relationships, and the people on the other end are like, F it, we don't care. Do what you got to do. I'm not trying to make the effort and be in a relationship with you or be in a friendship with you. So I really took the time to basically phase people out or really just
Mm.
cut people off
Mm-hmm.
or stand up for myself where it's like, no, I'm comfortable with saying I'm not comfortable with that. And I never used to be comfortable saying that, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I grew comfortable in saying, I'm not happy with that. We're not going to do that. I'm not interested. I don't want to. And I think in society, it's seen as rude by saying,
Right.
I don't want to do it just because. You have to make up an excuse, apparently. You have to have a reason. And I found that people are so shocked by that. It's like a double take. You what? I don't want to do that. What do you mean you don't
Right.
want to do that? I'm not comfortable and I don't want to. You
Yeah,
can't
because
make
like,
me.
why pose it as a question if you're not trying to let it be a choice?
And
Like,
I'm telling you, bro.
you
And it's
asked me if I
like,
wanted to, and I
and I said
politely said
no.
no.
Why are you mad though?
But why? But
That's what I'm
why?
saying. It was insane because you see people are like looking at you twice, like you are the B word, essentially. You're
Right.
being a total B. And I was like, all right, fine. The more I did that, the worse things got.
Mm,
And I realized those were the right people to not be around because
yes,
I
I
knew
love
what
how you
is
said
it that
that.
they wanted and what their agenda was.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned 2020.
I
Boundaries,
really,
quality. Yeah.
I'm so sorry I
It's
interrupted.
okay.
I
Go
didn't
for
mean
it.
to.
No, no, go for it. I'm done.
No, I was just going to say, I really am a huge fan of the sit back and let people really reveal, not relieve themselves, because I don't need to be seeing all of that. Um,
Relieve themselves in front of
and
you. That's
sometimes it does look
hilarious.
like they're relieving themselves on me, but
Yeah, because they're full of shit.
yes, but I am such a big fan of letting people reveal themselves to me. And that requires patience. It is something I haven't learned in until my 30s, into my mid 30s, because I never wanted to sit and think that somebody didn't like me, that
Oh
somebody
my
didn't want to be
goodness.
around me, that anything that was uncomfortable, which is why I had my issues with food, um,
Yeah.
and eating. Any feeling of discomfort was my enemy, which it is not. I have learned. So it is something that I've had to sit through uncomfortably and watch a person find their place in my life and not just place them where I want them to be. That is
Yes.
such a valuable thing that anybody can do for themselves, honestly, because
I'm
you
telling
get to
you.
see truth. You're letting the universe or the world, or you're letting things fall into place without that control, because you really don't control.
Yeah.
Um, because if you're forcing it, you're manipulating it, and it ain't real. It ain't
It does
real.
wonders. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It
So I'm
does
such a big fan of that.
such wonders for you and your peace. First and foremost, you're not surrounded by people who are parasites
Right.
and they're not sucking out your joy, your love, your peace of mind,
Right.
none of those different things. But also, you're creating a safe space for healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I truly, truly desired and I'm working on and learning is creating healthy relationships,
Mm.
creating safe spaces where you can be yourself authentically.
Right.
um, you can be yourself, and there's none of this hiding and mistrust and emotional games and manipulations and all of these different things, the toxic relationship traits that everybody seems to gravitate towards.
Right.
But really just being in a place where you're like, you know what, I've got good people around me. And we talked
Right.
about this in a couple of episodes before, building a team of the
Right.
right people around you, the right support system by having quality people, even if that's one person, for me,
Right.
that's a win, right?
Right.
Um, so I took a beating because I felt like the fangs and the claws were out to get me all throughout the
Right.
year because of the people I was dealing with. But praise God, we've made it December 2020. I'm still here and
Yeah.
I have overcome.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure it out. That doesn't mean I have all the answers, but I like the path that I have taken, for
Yeah.
sure. And the one prayer that I said to myself is, there's certain people I don't want to bring with me in 2021.
Mm.
Lord, help me to do that, because I'm not going to 2021 with a whole bunch of people that are not right, and they don't benefit me. And when I say benefit me, I don't mean that materialistically. I'm
Right.
saying in terms of growing together
Right.
as two individuals who can help each other and really be there for one another and support one another.
Right.
That's what I mean by that.
Right. And I think this is so much, and I'm still trying to formulate this thought. I think it's so much more progressive than, like, say, just cutting somebody off,
Yeah.
because if you're allowing a process to play itself out, then the inevitable is going to happen. So if it's that this person is not to be in your life, that is where you will see things going. And if this person is to be in your life, that is where you will see it going. So
Mm,
it's not something where, again, you've taken over the control and like ended a process before it's time. You let
mm,
it play out. And I find that it is, though it's painful, again, you
mm,
find that peace and you know you've done the right thing for yourself.
mm,
So, along with this, because I think this is kind of linked, in 2020 for me, I've learned to stop assigning emotions that I believe people have to them. I have stopped doing that joint.
what do you
So
mean?
to be more
If you can just.
specific, is okay. So again, back to my childhood trauma, because it was such a big thing I carried in my life. With my family, I experienced abuse that was not believed, right? And which for me was doubly impactful. You know, I experienced abuse and then it wasn't believed, but I assigned certain thoughts that I think was going through the minds of the adults. So I was like, oh, my mother must not like me, or my family, it's all me. The fault is mine. And they're looking at me like I'm the problem. But
Mm,
as I was writing, because I'm writing my book, and I think there are two crafts that I have been a part of that kind of allows your understanding of a human being to grow exponentially.
mhm,
Writing about them
mhm,
and acting, because these are two things. Like, if you're acting someone, if you're acting that character, you have to have a level of understanding to be that person, or to be able to portray that person honestly.
mhm,
And when you're writing about them, it's, to me, it's very similar to acting. Like, there has
mhm,
to be an understanding that you have, rather than you coming from where you are and
mhm,
projecting what you think from where you are. So when
mhm,
you step into a person's shoes, it's a whole different situation. So
mhm,
as I've started writing about my grandmother, because I'm on her right now, and I've kind of touched on my mother, I'm not up to her yet. I
mhm,
really feel like I understand more, because
mhm,
my mother came from also a family that was abusive.
mhm,
Um, Her mother was uh, beat by my grandfather. So
mhm,
my grandmother and grandfather, they were in a domestic violence living situation. So
mhm,
my mother was a product of that, and she also, all children that observe abuse, or whoever's within your vicinity where
mhm,
abuse is happening, everybody is affected.
mhm,
So I started to think of my mother. Okay, so she was in a family that was abusive. She now comes out, like, she's now gets married. And I'm thinking, this is her way of getting away, of escaping. And
mhm,
now she's in a marriage And she's thought, because who among us, with how society has taught us, do not think that marriage or someone else can save our lives, can make things different, can make your reality something that you never thought it could be.
Mm.
So I'm now thinking of my mother. She probably was thinking that, like, she is escaping this reality with her parents, only to be in a marriage that she looked as a savior,
Mm-hmm.
to find that that husband of hers was a source of abuse to her child. So
Mm-hmm.
now that she's experiencing that, it's like a reality that she cannot come to terms with, because this is
Mm.
not what she set out to do. So now it's like, it's an embarrassment. She doesn't know how to handle, what is she supposed to do? Um, Divorce, that's not how I saw my life. That's not how I saw myself. Now my family is talking bad about me. I'm thinking all of
Mm.
these things she was probably processing. But
Mm-hmm.
as a child, and with my limited understanding, I was to be protected. I'm
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that I am downplaying at all. But I can now see that it wasn't only something about love, and if it was about love of me, my mother's love on me reflects on her love of herself, because
Mm-hmm.
I am from her. So
Mm-hmm.
if she could not protect me, or felt she could not, it's it's to the extent that she felt she couldn't protect herself or
Mm.
love herself. It is a direct reflection of that, rather than, oh, my family doesn't love me or care about me. Like, I stopped assigning um, emotions on how it looked on the outside. And I think that's so helpful. Like, say with these toxic people that we're dealing with forward 2020 or 2019, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you are behaving passive aggressively with me. Yes, that is what I see, but I do not know how you feel about me. And that is
Yeah.
not my business. I
Mm-hmm.
know that this behavior isn't healthy for me. So I
Mm.
am going to find a way to hold my boundary and have
Mm-hmm.
respect for myself. But once
Mm-hmm.
I start assigning how you feel about me, it's more
Mm-hmm.
hurtful. It's
Mm-hmm.
more hurtful. And I'm making up stories that are only painful to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to make up how you feel. I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
know none of that. I just
Mm-hmm.
need to know how to move forward. And I find
Yeah.
that that's so freeing, instead of,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you know what? She probably doesn't like me, or she doesn't love me anymore, meanwhile, it's their coping mechanisms. It's because of how they grew up, or because of how they see situations. So
Mm-hmm.
that, it just takes away a level of burden that I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to carry. So I have
Mm.
found that in 2020, it's like, oh, okay, I don't know how you feel, but I know what you're doing, and that
Mm-hmm.
and that 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 cannot work between us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long explanation, but
No, but it's amazing. And I think also you don't have to make up reasons as to why they don't like you.
right,
Because you can have, oh, they don't like me anymore, they don't know. But a lot of the times we break it down to maybe it's this, maybe it's that,
right,
maybe I'm the problem, maybe this is the root of it. You're trying
right,
to figure all of these things out and
right,
wasting yourself away and
correct,
still never getting the right explanation or the
right,
truthful answer, right?
yeah,
And it just becomes a waste of time. And
yes,
that's something that we do in every situation, whether it be in the work incident where it's like, why is it that they won't treat me right? Why is it that they won't do this? What did I do? Could I have done this? Shoulda, woulda, coulda, as I
right,
say. But letting go of those things, I think, is quite important because
yeah,
we can only deal with one person at a time, and it
yeah,
should be us first and foremost
yeah,
before we try and deal with other people.
yeah.
We need to be equipped.
Yeah, so 2020 teaching us to let go. I really have learned to let
Yeah.
go. Let go.
Mm.
Yeah. I've learned me a lot in 2020, self-acceptance, like I've never felt before. And again, it comes from I don't need the validation of other people. And my self acceptance started from the inside and has become external. You know,
Mm,
myself as a human being, me taking the responsibility of my own healing, me not needing to look how society says I should, or I feel like guys think I should. Like, I don't need that validation. That problem would be their problem, not mine. I love and accept myself where I am, my quirks and everything. Um, yeah, and that comes from sitting with within myself, within the discomfort of myself, and understanding this is my human condition. This is me. I'm human with my flaws. So yeah,
absolutely. You can't apologize for that. You can only be
nah,
yourself.
but I
You,
used to.
you,
I used to
you
walk
know?
around apologizing constantly, and I didn't know that. Apologizing for me, my appearance, my
Mm,
thoughts, my
mm,
behaviors, always trying to shift myself so that I can be accepted or appropriate or palatable to others, which is a family dynamic that I learned how to
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah. So I
For
learned
me,
in 2020 of
yeah.
that, yo.
For me, it was more in friendships. I think trying to
Mm,
change in those environments, and also um, in relationship to those in a position of authority,
mm,
which then bred a lot of resentment towards people in position of power because of how much they
mm,
abuse their power and their
mm.
treatment. So I then painted everybody in the same brush. If you was in a position of authority, automatically I didn't trust you. Do you know what I mean?
Um,
So it's like I was changing myself for people in a position of power only for me to get
oh,
abused by that all the time,
got it,
right?
got it,
The
got
point
it,
where it's by the time I was like, okay, no, enough is enough.
right,
I I would then see everybody in that same light.
got it,
Like if you're in a position of authority, it's like, yeah, you're trash. Do
got it.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, these are things that we unlearn, but we also find a balance from um, being our authentic selves, but also
Mhm.
being truthful about ourselves and being honest,
Which is so necessary. It's so
about ourselves.
necessary.
It's a fine line, right?
So necessary. But
Yeah.
honestly, in a society, in a world that has taught us, especially as Black people, like you're not enough, that you're not okay, in positions like the workplace, you've had to
Mm-hmm.
create and shift yourself to be palatable for those people in the workplace. You've had to. And it's only, well, you didn't have to, but in order to be hired or something like that, it's something where we had to that we learned basically
Mm-hmm.
to adapt, and even with our hair, with our
Mm-hmm.
speech, with our knowing that authority will be abused and having a certain level of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's even stronger for, say, minorities or Black, not Black people, women, you
Mm-hmm.
know, for white people, white men especially, it's been okay to be your whole 100% self
Mm-hmm.
and still be hired and still be accepted and still be placated, and people are like, oh no, that's just how they are. But it's other
Mm-hmm.
people who have had to shift themselves. So getting that message from the world is something that we are now in 2020, mostly learning how to unpack and being like, nah, F that, son. This is how I
Mm-hmm.
am. Not an excuse to be rude or unprofessional or anything like that, but there is a certain flavor that I
Mm-hmm.
bring as myself. As everyone, I am unique, and is this is me. So all of me, instead of having to hide portions of myself to be
Mhm.
accepted. And I did that all the way around. I did that with my family. I did that within the workplace. Um, I didn't do that with my friends so much. Um, I didn't do that with my friends so much. Yeah. But with my family and especially the workplace, it's like you got to do this code switching and all of
Mhm.
that. That's, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's tough, man.
yeah,
It's tough, but we're learning. That's
we
it. We're
are.
learning,
We
and it's
are.
the beginning of great things.
Yeah,
As long as you're implementing these things and taking it one step at a time,
you're right.
there's only room for growth. And that's what
Amen.
we advocate on this platform.
Amen and hallelujah. So, with that, I would say for me, I feel complete, Grace. I don't know
For sure.
how
I
you're
totally
feeling.
agree.
Okay. So I will say, oh, we forgot to do our handles
We can
in the
do it
beginning.
now.
It's okay. So I can be found, again, I am Rachel. I can be found on Instagram as the Sassy Rachel. I've been writing a book, an autobiography is what I am working on. I am also creating a manual for young adults who have experienced trauma in their childhood. And I will be teaching that class once the manual is completed, or teaching the course, so that these young adults have a hope and know how to apply these tools to understand that their lives are flourishing and can flourish as much as the other person. So I'm working on those two projects, and our podcast Instagram is, what is our podcast Instagram?
Soul
It is
Speak is
Soul
at
Speak
Soul Speak underscore podcast.
Podcast.
Yeah.
And we can be found on YouTube and soon Spotify. All right, over to
Yay.
you, young lady.
Yes, I have been and I am Grace Kogrena. You can be able to find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Grace underscore Kogrena. And you can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at the underscore reading underscore hideout. I write kidlit. I write children's books for those who are from the ages of 5 until 9. They're picture books, and you can be able to find them on Amazon as well as Kindle. And you can also find all the events that I have going on my Instagram page, updates, as well as what I'm doing, and just keeping up with me, guys. So like, follow, share, subscribe,
Subscribe.
do it on every single platform. And, as you watch us grow and flourish, and we welcome you to join us in our Soul Speak family.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for the conversation, Grace. I
As
pray
always, my
that,
pleasure.
thank you. I pray that we have all who are listening have found something to walk away with that has nourished us today. And with that,
Yay.
talk to you all next time.
Bye, guys. Speak
Bye.
soon.